Last episode we went from a pile of 3D printed parts to something that actually looks like a Prometheus Hangar bay, at least in grey, and that's a good start. But this is what we're turning it into. Today is all about paint, base coats, panel lining and weathering. Welcome to the Geeky Workbench. If you missed episode 1, here's the short version. We 3D printed all the pieces of the hangar, assembled it, filled gaps, sanded everything and hit it all with a few coats of grey primer. The primer gives the paint something to grip and it unifies the surface so you can actually see all the details and spots that might need some more attention, and I found quite a few of those. As a first layer I'm applying a full flat black undercoat. I'm going over the entire hangar with black. By painting from dark to light I can build up depth and control the shadows. The hangar is a bit too big for my spray booth, which made some areas really hard to reach, but we got there in the end. For the base coats I've chosen a dark grey, German grey by AK, and a pale grey for the lighter accent parts. White, red and yellow for the markings on the interior and exterior. Once the black is dry, I begin with zenithal highlighting, which is a fancy way of saying I'm spraying a dark grey from an angle as if the light source is coming from the ceiling and in this case also from the sides. So the top edges of panels get caught in the light, the recesses stay dark, and this way a believable interior light logic begins to form. On the exterior there are a lot of parts with different colors. I chose to mask them all off and then airbrush them. This takes a long time. I think I spent more than an hour on this, but the paint process becomes so much easier and only takes a fraction of the time. The exterior side of the ramp was a whole new level of masking for me. There were so many different shapes which were hard to make out under the tape. I used a tool to go around all the shapes and press the tape down at the edges. This made it easier to cut with a scalpel later. And I'm cutting really lightly, just enough to cut the tape and not the paint beneath. I don't know how long this took, but it was a long time. But it was actually quite fun and relaxing. Before I sprayed the paint, I covered all the masked areas with a clear varnish. This helps reduce leaking of paint beneath the tape. For all the areas that were going to be red or yellow, I laid down a coat of white to help with the brightness of the colors. Then it was time to peel off the masking tape. All the time spent on the preparation was absolutely worth it. I could not have painted all that this precisely with a brush. I tried masking the airlock door, but it seemed easier to just paint by hand. But it was very hard to reach and took multiple passes to cover every spot. After I had painted all the reds and yellows on the inside, it was time for the second round of masking on the outside, this time for all the white and yellow surfaces. While that was drying, I could work on the side supports. I laid down white for all the yellow areas first, same as before. At this point I wished I had figured out a way to mask this, because it was a lot of back and forth between grey and yellow. Just a quick pause here. We're about halfway through the painting process, and if you're building along or thinking about your own diorama project, I'd really love to see it. Drop a comment below or tag me if you share it somewhere. It's always motivating to see what other people are making. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is a 4-part series and episode 3 is where things get really interesting. Just saying. After taking the masking tape off, I noticed I had forgotten a few areas, so I painted them by hand. I'm nearly finished with all the detail painting here, and now I notice that the dark grey I put on top is a bit too dark, and I'm going to highlight the middle parts of the panels with a little lighter version of the grey I used, so there's a bit more depth. Just finished the highlights of the panels, and it's quite subtle, but I think you can see it's lighter in the middle than on the outsides near the panel lines. And I did some passes over here where the vehicles would drive off the ramp. And yes, I did some on the top on the boxes as well. I was just checking some screenshots again, and I noticed that there are quite a few markings that aren't in the GAN body model, or they're in a different color, like this I just painted black. So I need to make this one white, this one white, paint a screen on here, and here's a white line. Also here are some markings that need to be added, and I think those are screens too, so I'll be painting those as well. And on the outside there are also some markings that weren't in the GAN body model, so I'll be painting those as well. Okay, so I'm not finished with detail painting yet. In case you were wondering what sound that is in the background, that's the 3D printer. I'm already on the next project. Seems there's no project without decals. I quickly made these signs for the elevator door in Adobe Illustrator and printed them on decal paper. I didn't do a whole lot of chipping because, as I understand it, the Prometheus is a new ship built for this mission, and the crew hasn't been that active on it since they departed, so the wear and tear wouldn't be that extensive. More important than chipping in this case are the oil washes and enamel washes. For the panel lines I'm using a black oil paint thinned down with odorless mineral spirits. This brings out the shadows. And any overspill I wipe off with a cotton bud damp with mineral spirits. And then I use a dark brown oil paint for the accumulated grime and dust, which I apply much more liberally. When it has dried, I take it back a bit with a paper towel damp with mineral spirits. Then I add a few splashes of fuel stains for good measure. In the film they get hit by a nasty storm and the crew barely makes it back into the hangar. And I assume quite a lot of sand gets blown inside, so I used pigment powder for that. Time for a little before and after. Next episode we'll focus on the rover that's going to sit in the middle of all this. We'll be painting the interior parts, assemble the rover, and add all the transparent pieces we prepared before we finally paint the exterior and add weathering. It's going to be a lot. And then episode 4, we add the LEDs, make a piece of terrain for the base, and add some last details and bring everything together. I'm already looking forward to that one. If you've been following along with the build, thank you so much. See you again in episode 3.